Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys Own Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, Nice Guy Community. Today, we're in store for a great conversation. Now, think about this. When was the last time you asked yourself what a fulfilling work life actually means to you? So today, we're going to dig deep into that subject. Jeff Westphal, he is an accomplished executive. He's an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and the author of a brand new book, A Work Life Worth Living. A Work Life Worth Living. After years of chasing professional success, Jeff came to the realization that many high achievers quietly struggle with, and that is success alone does not guarantee meaning. So we're going to dig deep into that. Through his book and his company, MeaningSphere, Jeff is helping people rethink the relationship between work and life, built around his belief that work and life are not two separate things to balance, but one life you're constantly dialing in. His mission is not to prescribe change, but to empower people to create work lives that feel more meaningful, connected, and worth living. That's the only thing I have prepared for this show because I knew it was just going to be a legitimate, genuine conversation. Jeff, I'm excited to chat with you. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Doug. Nice to meet you. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, we're done. You just, that was beautiful. I don't even know what to say. I mean, thank you.
Well, my 92-year-old
you nailed it.
My 92-year-old mom has been writing all the intros, and she's really doing a great job. So,
well, good job, Mom. Wow.
I feel like the same thing. I've said this many times before on the show prior to us having this introduction from your amazing team. By the way, amazing team supporting
Truly
you
they are.
And all the effort. Is that there really is no connection between the harder you work, meaning the more hours that you work, the more successful that you will be. And one of the things that I found was really interesting as I was preparing for the interview, I was talking about that success and meaning are not always the same thing. So can we talk about the definitions of success and what truly meaning is in the work life side of things?
Sure. It's as good a place to start as any.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll tell you a simple story. I'm going like crazy. I get out of a year of law school, not a good fit, and get a job in the advertising business. And I'm going at it, loving it, just, pulling all-nighters at work, just going crazy, doing well, get promoted, change firms, get promoted again. And then I get offered a corporate job. I'm telling my parents, hey, I got this great job with Marriott Corporation, feels like a good move client side. And my father says, why don't you come work for me? Okay. And I say, okay, that's it. That was the whole conversation, right? Get to the office. He promptly offers me $5,000 less than the job I had accepted.
Of course.
Right? And dive right in, go like crazy. Having success, companies doubled, companies quadrupled, right? I'm in a marketing and sales role. I can't take nearly half that credit or much of that credit.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I get introduced to this former DuPont executive named Jim Patton. And Jim says to me, so what's your vision? Where do you see this going? And I look at him like, I graduated with honors. I was captain of the road. I had a resume, right? My career was going crazy, going great. And I looked at him and I had no idea what to say.
Not unusual.
And there I was at 26, 27, pretty successful. No idea. And I said, well, after I helped my dad get this going in the right direction, I probably want to become a teacher. But literally, I made that up just to sound like I had something to say.
Right.
So that was the beginning of a humbling series of epiphanies. Thanks to my first wise mentor, knowing questions to ask me that caused me to actually think about why I was doing what I was doing. And I was ostensibly successful by all the normal measures, and I had no idea. And then I came slowly to realize that I wanted to have an impact for people and society. It wasn't motivating me to be successful in the normal sense of promotions and money and all that. And I spent the rest of my career trying to actually serve a purpose that mattered to me in my heart, rather than what I was frankly unconsciously led to believe success ought to be.
Well, I think oftentimes, and again, you're more of the expert in this world. I just live it on a daily basis. I remember my dad saying to me many, many times, if you enjoy what you are doing, you will never work a day in your life. And I started to think about that as an adult. I'm in my 60s now, but as a guy that was in my 30s and 40s and working hard, I kept thinking, if I'm passionate about it, then I really won't ever feel like I'm working because I'm enjoying doing what I do. Is there a difference between finding meaning in who you are in your work in the workplace and being passionate about what you do, or are they in the same stride? I'm just curious what your
Hmm.
perspective is.
That is a great question, and I know how you feel about what your father meant to you, and I'm loath to question his wisdom,
Right.
so I'll try to build on it.
Okay.
Um, Jim Patton, my same mentor, gave me Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl to read.
Hmm.
I was maybe 30 at that point, and that's when I got introduced to the idea that my joy wasn't the ultimate goal, that happiness wasn't the goal. As parents, we all want our children to be happy. Well, I chased happy for a long time,
Hmm.
and only to come to realize that actually Frankel was right. If you have enough why, you can tolerate almost any how. And honestly, sales tax software is not exactly a bundle of joy, right? Particularly for a former ad guy who should have stayed in the advertising business,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, I've never seen a spreadsheet I've liked ever.
I'm with
Uh,
you.
but because I had come in touch with a larger reason why, I never struggled with the stuff that wasn't really a lot of fun. Hard conversations with people, difficult decisions, letting people go, really difficult. I cried over these things. And yet I knew they were in service to something that meant more than money. And so that to me, people think meaning means always sort of rainbows and unicorns. It doesn't. Those difficult moments, those hard lessons were ultimately the most meaningful aspects of my own work life. And that's what I try to share in my book is trying to help people appreciate that the meaning doesn't just come from the big sales win or the promotion. It often comes from the shocking disappointment, but the door that closed opened a door you didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
And those lessons are really the what I hope to pay forward with the next phase of my career.
What do you think that it is that people will have to unlearn? Because there's a lot of unlearning that goes on in
Yeah,
in finding some sort of meaning in work.
right.
What do you think that they have to unlearn? That the sale isn't, if you're in sales, it's the sale is the victory. If you're in leadership, it's elevating someone to a point where they are working independently and
Yeah.
succeeding. What is it that we have to unlearn in the
Mm.
workforce in the workplace?
Well, I'm going to go long here. Almost everything we learned in school,
Okay.
because we learned that the teachers always got the right answer. We've learned to go for approval. We've learned to compete with our peers to get the better grades, particularly if we're in a competitive kind of academic environment. Um, we've learned to be obedient. We haven't often had much opportunity to learn creativity or collaboration, working well with others to create new value.
Yeah.
That's kind of not what school's designed to do. There are some schools growing now that are designed to do that, but very few. And yet, particularly in the age of AI, where all the data, all the information, all the analysis, all that stuff that we're trained to do in school, which we need to learn, we need to know, because we can't just trust AI and take their answers and run with it. We need to know why the answer is what it is. Don't get me wrong, but still, in tomorrow's world, which is starting right now, we have to learn how to create new value with other people effectively and build meaningful relationships. And so I think we got to unlearn a whole heck of a lot, honestly.
Well, how do we don't work within a silo. So we are out there working at a position within a corporation that may have their own culture set up. And what if we discover that when we're 2, 3, 4 years, even 10 or 20 years into that job, where what you are talking about right now does not match the philosophy of leadership at a company? Do you have to say, "Hey, I got to pull up stakes," or how do you deal with it? Because we don't work within the silo; we work within a machine. Unfortunately, sometimes.
Well put. And Doug, that is a very insightful question. Um, I'm trying to offer this learning that I was so fortunate to have passed on to me by people with much more experience than
Hmm.
I. Um, for anyone who works. So while I realize your audience and most of the people listening
Hmm.
are probably already in some leadership capacity, they own a business or they've
Right. Right.
advanced in a business, we're all working for somebody. And really, I want to help the people who don't get the benefit that I had, right? Family business, money for a coach, those kinds of things. And I think the first step is to basically realize that nobody else cares as much about your work life as you do.
Right.
And that if you're looking for someone else to make it right for you, or you think you can job hop enough till you find that external environment that's going to make it right for you, I fear you'll be very disappointed.
Mm.
Because 80 or 90% of what feeds fulfillment is inside
Yeah.
and knowing what it is that feeds fulfillment for you.
Yeah. Agreed.
Then you can find ways, even if you're in an environment that you can't even talk to anybody about it,
Right. Toxic.
right? Toxic or just not open,
Right.
you
Right.
can still see where the juice is for you and feed that without telling anybody that you're getting more fulfillment out of this than they are. And one of the reasons that I created MeaningSphere is, there are great books out there and great speakers. Simon Sinek is fabulous. Adam Grant is incredible. Brene Brown is incredible. Dan Pink. They're offering amazing wisdom, but where do you go to practice in a safe place?
Hmm.
Where do you go to meet other people like you and I, Doug, right? Who want to have these conversations, but you can't have them at work because somebody's going to look at you going, "Hey, we care about the bottom line." And you're talking about whether
Right.
the customer feels like they're getting growth from the product. Like, that's cute, but we don't want to talk about that. Where do you go to have those conversations? Well, that's what MeaningSphere is about. If you don't mind me throwing a plug in for the
Yeah,
platform.
no problem. No problem. There is such a deep connection between enjoyment, fulfillment at work and yourself and meaning, finding your own meaning and purpose, and the success of an organization. I don't understand why more organizations don't understand that. If you have a team that is deeply connected to their purpose and to
Right.
their meaning, I feel like you have a company that can only succeed. Everybody's rowing in the same direction. We're all on the same bus. Whatever other
Yeah.
sayings that are out there. If we all feel like we have purpose in the workplace, I feel like we are only looking for success. I'd love to hear just a couple of sentences on
Hmm.
your perspective on that.
Hmm. Well, in my 30 years in the primary working world, we never achieved everybody rowing in the same direction, in spite of an investment toward that vision that I think is unparalleled, right? Um, but but we didn't have everybody rowing in 17 different directions.
Right, right,
And we did have a turnover rate of 4.5% a year for 20 years in the tech industry. And so people would, I had my VP of sales walk out of a meeting once and look at me and goes, this culture thing, which I didn't get, we just made a decision in that room that would have taken another company 6 months, and we made it in half an hour because
right,
everybody trusted that we weren't just trying to hurt them. And it was a resetting of their sales territories. And you know what that could be like, right?
right, right.
So I guess the point is that, and I know you're trying to help me make shorter answers.
I'm not. You can
It,
take as long as you want to answer the
it's
questions.
it's messy, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's messy and it's worth it. And when people feel like they're a part of creating it together, rather than just executing against your sort of view of how they ought to be, the benefits are just, off the charts.
Play the doctor for a second, and there's somebody that's coming in with the symptoms that MeaningSphere and your book can help get through and help people find their purpose. What are those symptoms that they're experiencing, and what's the first place that you start? I know that's probably a bunch of different answers for that, but what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Yeah. I remember interviewing, this is way back in early in my career. I remember interviewing a young sales rep, wannabe, or at least a candidate. And he comes in and he's generally pretty impressive. And I asked the standard question, what would you really love to be doing in 5 years? And he says, I'd really love to be a nature guide because I just love nature and da 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 da. And I looked at him and I said, that's awesome. Go do that. He's like, I can't. I'm like, you can do it. And off he went. And the headhunter called, how'd Dan do? And I'm like, Dan's going to go be a nature guy. The headhunter said, this would be a great job if it wasn't for people.
Right,
Um,
right,
but
exactly.
but to your question, Dan never had, obviously, anybody to actually talk to about connecting what he really cared about to any plausible idea of what a career could look like,
Yeah,
right? So his heart wanted this, but his Uncle Bob probably said, you get a job in sales and that's always going to feed you. And so there he was interviewing for a sales job, right? So I think in a big way, that symptom, right? Going to try to get seeing someone trying to get something, um, and not really understanding the connection between what it is they're going for and what they care about.
right.
You know, there's many great sales jobs in the whole ecosystem around the medical industry. So if you really care about having lost a loved one to cancer and you want to make a difference, you can do it by selling medical technology. You don't have to be the researcher in the research lab who has the eureka moment. Who made the test tubes? Who who made that
Right.
research possible, right? And that's part of what MeaningSphere and the book is intended to help people have an opportunity to think about, because I know I never did. I mean, it was a revelation to me to realize that, yeah, there's sales tech software in that soccer ball that I just ordered for my kid
Yeah.
that I wouldn't have been able to order if my company didn't make it possible for Amazon to do that transaction. So those connections that so many people in this era of specialization are removed from, I hope to help people, reconnect those and realize that actually the world we have requires all of us.
Let me just share this with our nice guy community just so we're making sure we're on the same path here. Jeff's book is called A Work Life Worth Living. We're going to put a link in the show notes so that you have access to the book. Somewhere around the air date of this podcast, the published date of this podcast will be when your book goes on pre-sale on Amazon. I'm excited to be able to introduce the book to our community. Let's talk about the origin of the book. You've been doing this work for decades on your own with your own self work, and then you created MeaningSphere after all of that. After you learned the lessons, and then you decided to write the book. Just talk about that journey for a second, from MeaningSphere to the book itself.
Doug, that's really close. Uh, the book idea came before MeaningSphere.
Okay.
All right. As I'm applying some of these ideas that my mentor helped me realize, and then I go asking other people, what do you really care about? And they'd be like, well, I'd be like, oh my goodness, how could I have not known that? And it just changed everything about the company, how I led, et cetera. I thought, and as new employees were joining, I would meet them all in small groups and I'd say, why are you here? Very few actually had an answer other than kind of the best job I could get, right? Pay, benefits, that kind of thing, right?
Right. Right.
And so I'm like, when I'm done here, once we've accomplished something with this, I'm going to write a book and go on the speaker's tour because, people give me feedback. I'm fairly acceptable communicator, right?
Right.
But I'm like, okay, once we're done here, like we've accomplished something meaningful. Little did I know I'd be in that company for 33 years. But that was always the vision. And then when I finally announced that I'm going to retire in 2016, and at the end of the year, I start working on the book. And on my big retirement trip, I have like another in a series of epiphanies where I realized, like, right, I already mentioned all these great authors. You know, maybe the book would have been useful 20 years ago when I started doing these things, when the books that impacted me were The Seven Habits and Fifth Discipline and
Right. Right.
Synchronicity, right? But like, does the world need another leadership or management book or culture book and another speaker? And I was like, no. And then it literally came in an instant. And it was like, they need a place to practice. and to work with others and feel a sense of belonging. They need tools, they need support. They, being all the people who can't afford an executive coach like I had, need a place that's affordable where they can learn from and support each other. And that was the big aha. So that put the book on hold because I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to publish a book without a place for people to apply the stuff, right?
Right.
And so we spent 5 years developing MeaningSphere, testing it, refining it, doing research with world-class research partners, et cetera, tested and validated the platform. And then I went back, finished the book, and here we are. And I had a health issue along the way that cost us 2 years. So I can't believe I'm 64 and it's finally time. But here you are, I didn't have any control, and this is the time. And I guess I'm not too old yet.
Everything in its divine purpose and its divine timing is as well. So tell me,
There are larger forces at work.
oh, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. What should I be asking you about either the communities that you are building or the book that I haven't asked, so that somebody that is out there in our audience right now knows that this is, one of the things that I kept coming back to with your team
Right.
is this something that's good for an executive that's been at at the same company for 30 years and highly successful, and they kept saying this is for
Yeah.
the man or the woman early in their career. Let's shape this,
Yeah.
or let's shape them before
Right.
they get rolling. So talk about that, or maybe anything else that
Mm.
you want to share about the book, about MeaningSphere, about any of that.
Well, you just sort of in your question embedded actually a great answer to your question, which is what would I say to people in leadership, people with employees? What I would say not to do is buy the book and give it to your people,
Mm-hmm.
or tell your people about the book. Hey, you might want to read this. Because unfortunately, no matter how much you care about those people, they see you as power. And no matter how nice you are, you're the power. And there's nothing you can do to separate that. Even a zealot like me, with 20 years to work and build the culture, et cetera, I suspect no more than 30% of the people that I was leading actually believed that I actually believed the things that we were trying to do, right? They were still
Right.
mostly skeptical because the
Right.
rest of the world doesn't work this way.
Right.
And so, and they have a very, very high level of suspicion about anybody making money off of their efforts, right? And unfortunately, the Enron guys and
Yeah.
people who rob from their employees give all of us a bad name, and it makes me crazy that they do that. But the people just look at us with skepticism. So I would say, if you really are interested, read the book.
Mm-hmm.
If it rings any bells and it makes any sense to you, really check in with yourself about how deeply you believe these things, and then ask the people around you, hey, how am I doing with this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I care about these 5 things, whatever your 5 things are,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that I'm actually behaving in a way that gives you comfort that I care about these things. And I've read this book and it's caused me to rethink, right? I think that that's precious because you just can't be Solomon in your own home. If they're then begging you for the book,
Yeah.
well, then fine, say, okay. But my goal here is not to sell, like, look, I don't need to do any of this. The company went public. This is not a money-making endeavor for me. So I care much more that anyone who does show an interest in this book and this platform honestly wants to be there. I'm not interested in selling gym memberships for people who won't show up or won't get anything out of it.
Right. Right.
So basically, my message is don't buy my book unless you really want to really take a hard look in the mirror.
For someone that does a lot of self work, when you wrote the book, did you change? Did any of your own perspective change in any unexpected ways as you were writing this and say, I didn't even think about that, but man, I need to do more work on myself on this particular part of my life?
Doug, I'll tell you, I actually want to interview you. That is such an insightful question because yes, I grew so much from the process of writing the book, four manuscripts from end to end, right?
Yeah.
Um, that I had to sit down with my successor and make sure I had some FaceTime with him to apologize for some of my behaviors that, I only in hindsight after I'd left the business did I realize, wow, that was really bad.
Yeah.
And I still have a lot of that kind of work to do. Um, it was cathartic. It was emotional. I'm not easily emotional, but writing about my mother, who passed of breast cancer 25 years ago, and what that meant in my life and career and how I buried my grief and how that led to other challenges that I had to overcome, or at least learn to live with. Uh, yeah, it is. I would recommend to anybody that whether you ever want to publish a book or not is a totally separate question, but
Right.
sit and write one.
Agreed. Agreed. Back in 2015, I wrote a book called Nice Guys Finish First, and it was an amazing lesson for me. It took about 9 months to write the book and about another year to finally get it published and out there to the world. Discipline, uh, stories lessons learned in life. So many great things came up, and yeah, it was a huge learning experience for me. I would be shocked if someone said in writing the book I didn't, I just got all my thoughts out on a piece of paper and I was able to release that to the world. Oftentimes, you do learn a lot of lessons just in the editing process alone. When your publisher says we need to change this around, but that's not how it happened.
That. And, at one point I'm discussing with my senior editor, Betty Sue Flowers, how am I going to deal with this? And she says, trust the truth, Jeff.
That's right. There's only one of those.
And I'll never forget that moment. And it wasn't like I wanted to lie, but I wasn't sure I could tell the whole truth, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And that was, is that editing or is that mentoring? I think it's more mentoring than editing, although
Agreed.
she's quite a talented editor as well. And then the people at Greenleaf, they were fabulous. Heather, she's like, this thing about your dad not actually, he doesn't say a word to you, and then he asks you to join the company. And then later, in the middle of an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer, I'm sitting right there and he says, well, Jeff will succeed me as CEO. Never one word had been said,
Before
not
that.
one word, right? And I'm like, ooh, and my first thought was, well, that's cool. And my second thought was, oh my gosh, what about the rest of the leadership group? I mean,
Right.
I was like 29 at the time.
Right. Well,
And
legacy.
so
Legacy means a lot.
but the editor says, hey, can you say a little more about like your relationship with your dad? And that led to the addition of a whole new chapter just right before we finished the manuscript, where I had kind of not commented on this thing. So anyhow, great question. What a journey. And people say, what about your next book? I'm like, no, there's no next book. Like,
This was it. One and done. One and done. I love it.
it's
I love it.
truly
Hey, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a question or two about technology because with the prevalence
right,
of AI nowadays, does
right.
it help your mission or does it take away from your mission because everything has become or is becoming so much more impersonal now
Right.
with technology?
Yeah, another great question. As you know, I include a note about the role of AI in each chapter. Um, I believe, and of course it's belief because nobody can predict the future, but I think that AI's exponential advancement of crowding people out of analytical work, desk work, leaves us much more face to face
Mm-hmm.
with the reality that our highest value is in our relationships, trust building, and creating new value, creating new ideas, new value, new capabilities, and also enjoying each other's company and creating experiences that AI can't have experiences, and AI can't
Right.
enjoy a sunset, right? But we can, and now that we'll be less tethered to our desks, hopefully, then there's going to be new opportunities to create new experiences for people. So I do see AI is actually a painful, it will unfortunately be painful for many people.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah.
Change usually is, but it can usher in an era of deeper humanity. And I hope to support people through that change journey.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
If someone in our listening audience heard your message, they heard it loud and clear, but they still feel trapped in a career that no longer fits who they are,
Yeah.
what would you leave as your final thought to them? What would you want to let them know?
Oh, great that you know that, because so many people are just trudging, unconscious of how
Hmm.
depressed and miserable they are in their work, or convinced that there couldn't be anything more, right? Secondly, um, dreams die hard. So imagine the future you want. You know, there's no cost to it. And the worst thing that can happen is you cry because you don't have it yet. But after you get over crying that you don't have it yet, you can actually imagine how to get from here to there.
Right.
And you'd be amazed at how doors open you never even knew were there.
Well, I'm excited to hear some positive feedback from our audience when the book comes out. Do you know about when the book is hitting the streets? When is it out there?
Oh, absolutely. Available on Amazon and other online resources, June 2nd.
Okay.
So
And
just a couple weeks.
if they go to your website, the one that I'm going to put in the show notes, there'll
Right.
be a link to the book. Can they actually buy it from there? I know that's part of the administrative stuff, so I don't know if you or your team
Right.
knows, but we'll figure that out.
My website takes you to Amazon,
Got it.
right?
Okay.
And it would help if you care about this kind of work and you want to see the world of work change, which is the mission, right? Then if you buy on Amazon, think about, and you like the book, think about posting a review, because that then moves the book up the rankings, and that'll
Totally.
allow more people to get in touch with it. And if it ever makes any money, that money will be going to our charitable pursuits anyhow.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And for those in our community, if you plan on buying the book, please plan on leaving a review. As an author of a book myself, written 11 years ago, I can tell you that the lifeblood of any author are the reviews of the book. It's what gets you higher in the algorithm. It's what gets you more book sales. It's not just the sales, as Jeff says, it's the impact that your book and your message is going to have. So please, if you intend to buy the book knowing that you're going to leave a review. But please don't just buy the book. We need the reviews also. That really will help Jeff get his message and his impact out there to the world even more. I'd love to have you back on the show, Jeff, once you have 6 months or so of experience on this book and what lessons people are telling you that they've learned as a result. Would you be open to that? Can I ask you that?
Doug, I'm not just saying this. Really, this couldn't be my happier of happy places to talk with
Nice.
someone as experienced and knowledgeable as you are, with a community like you've created on this topic. Like, you'd be sick of me, but I'd be back every month. So
Awesome.
just say the word.
Well, we'll get you back on the show once the book comes out and you got some positive reviews from our community. I would love to hear it. And I was watching one of your interviews. I think this was a handful of years ago. It was a video interview. You were wearing a Phillies hat. So I'm assuming, are you a Philadelphia resident?
You bet.
Awesome. Well,
You bet.
I was married to a woman that lived in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and met her at the Society Hill Sheraton there in Center City, and
Yeah.
lived in Maple Shade, New Jersey for a bunch of years myself.
All
So
right.
I'm a fan of that whole part of South Philly.
So
Cheesesteak.
when I say go Birds, you know what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
100%, 100%. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles, right, with an I. Exactly.
That's right. Jeff, thanks for sharing. Thanks for being on the show today.
Good to be with you, Doug. Take care.
Hey, nice guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Jeff. All of his information will be right there in the show notes. If you don't know how to go to the show notes and you're an adult, ask your kids. They'll tell you how to get there. Steve O'Brien, in the meantime, take us out of here.
Friday advice and Tuesday interviews with people far more interesting than they are. Fill up your week with the nice guys. Have fun storming the castle.